I got some ideas, I got some pals, let's get together and pitch some games. Alright, so Kid Icarus time. Shay, did you play this game back in the day?
No.
Okay. Well, let me tell you. I remember playing it as a kid over at my cousin's house. I never played it that much, just because, again, it was my cousin's house, and it was one of those games where I stopped seeing around his place, so I never got to have much experience in it. But it came on 87 for the Nintendo, and it was a vertical side-scroller where you're controlling this little angel guy named Pit, and it was kind of based on like Greek mythology, and you're fighting Medusa and various other mythological things like an eggplant wizard, classic
Classic stuff.
Yeah, classic stuff. They only made 2 games. So the first one was 87. They made a Game Boy game in 91, and that only came out in America and Europe. And then Japan got it on the Virtual Console all the way later in 2012, which is crazy. Especially for a Nintendo game to only get like an American release.
That is weird.
Way later. But Kid Icarus was a classic example of a Nintendo franchise coming back from the grave, where in 2002 they released a new game on the 3DS. And Shay, I cannot tell you how much I love that game. When I reviewed it for Examiner, I gave it a 4 out of 5. And I contemplated this. A lot of reviews, they feel natural. It's like, okay, this one feels like a 1, this one feels like a 3. Sometimes I have to sit down and stare at the screen for a while, or just like mull things over and be like, what do I want to give this game? And I really wanted to give this game a 5 out of 5 because I loved every second of it except for the controls. The controls are so bad that they shipped this game with a plastic little hinge shelf thingy that you can put your 3DS on to control it so that your hand doesn't hurt.
So it's kind of hanging there suspended?
No, you put this little thing on the desk and you prop it up. Kind of like a book. Like a little reader thing. And you control it. You aim with the stylus. So imagine holding your 3DS, controlling it with the stick in your left hand, and using the stick with your right, and also having to use the buttons as well.
Weird.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, and it was very... You could only play like 1 or 2 levels before having to give it a break, just because your wrist would hurt. And especially for kids, I can't even imagine them playing that game, just because 3DS is pretty small, but compared to a kid's hands, I don't think that they would have like the cognitive capacity to like handle something as complex as that. It's very unfortunate. I think if they re-released it on the Wii U, gave it a little bit more, polish, and they gave it, made it a little bit enhanced just so that it wasn't a straight port, and they gave it a controller, I think people would really like that game. Because it did pretty well in the press, in terms of reviews. Except a lot of people they were not very forgiving of that control scheme. And I myself, I marked down just that 1 star. It was a full star just because the controls were so bad. It was actually probably worth like 2 points off, but I loved everything about that game. The story was fun. It reminded me of Kingdom Hearts, just very simple, but just Saturday morning cartoon, but like in a good way. And it was just beautiful. It used the 3D graphics, probably one of the best on the system, and it was just so much fun. That game, though, was a on-rail shooter in some parts, and then you landed at some parts as well to do some platforming and some stuff like that. So that's why it also reminded me of Kingdom Hearts, and just also the look of it. But especially when it landed on the ground, that's when it really became fucked up and hard to control. But thankfully, that game had an awesome difficulty setting where you can make it as easy as you wanted to, or as hard as you wanted to. And when you slid that bar from easy to hard, all in between, because it had like 100 different settings, it's like +1 to whatever, something like that. You got more rewards. The higher it was, the more rewards you got. The lower it was, the less rewards you got, and the easier the enemies were, and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. And yeah, this is not the review segment for that game, but I would just like to see them, maybe make a port for the Wii U, and just to keep on going with this series, because stuff like Mario has had its time in the limelight, and they're obviously not going to retire Mario, but maybe give it some more time to really make something special for Mario, which we'll get into when we obviously talk about Mario.
Right.
But it's only had 3 games, and I think it deserves more. I think it's underutilized character in the Nintendo franchise, and I think people would really like to see more of them. I think people are a little bit in between because of the Kid Icarus game. Some people probably liked it like me, and a lot of people were kind of appalled by the control scheme, but they can definitely fix it. I mean, it wasn't unfixable, especially if they ported it to something else. And and in terms of where I would like a sequel to go, they could definitely take it in some other genre, because the first 2 were platformers. This one is more of a hybrid and kind of a shooter thing, and maybe they make the next one an RPG, or just maybe the same exact thing from 3DS, but just bigger, grander scale.
Right.
And I would like it to be pass away the whole Greek mythology stuff, and maybe have him fight some other kind of deity or realm or something like that. Really change it up in terms of what he's doing, instead of doing the typical Nintendo thing where it's the same exact thing every single game. Mario fighting Koopa every single game in terms of his games, but the spin-offs, like the RPG series, that's the only way that Mario's actually experimented nowadays. So yeah, I mean, do you have anything to say about Kid Icarus?
Nintendo should not let the ball stop rolling with this. They should keep the momentum going. They should... I feel like experimentation could benefit them with this character so much as they don't... excuse me. So much as that they don't take it into a really, really weird place. I mean, I obviously don't want to see this become like the God of War series, where it just seems to keep playing out in the same story.
Yeah, that's why I said I should just move on to mythology and really change it up, instead of having like, okay, he's fighting the same things again, and he's fighting Medusa and Hades again, and again and again and again
and again.
Yeah. I don't know what mythology is very close to Greek where he could really fit
Roman.
in. I mean, I guess it could be Roman, but I think that'd be like too close. Maybe Christian. Maybe he's fighting the Satan and he's helping out Jesus. That'd be fucking rad. Actually, you know what? There should be more Jesus games.
Kind of like that.
Why do religious people have to like ruin everything? Why can't we have like a good Jesus game where it's not like, and then God said unto me, I pray for thee, for I am the white of the lion and the lamb of the roaring, or whatever the Bible says.
The circle of life.
Yes, Jesus is Mufasa and Simba.
Jesus is...
He's everything, because Jesus is everywhere. He's every single character in that movie, even the bad ones.
Jesus is Aslan.
Yes, Aslan. He's always a line. Okay,
right.
Tangent aside.
I really do think Kid Icarus could... Nintendo, you have so many possibilities. Don't screw up Kid Icarus by shelving him again.
Yeah, what's the point of bringing something back from the grave and then, like, getting rid of it? If sales weren't that good, you just gotta do a better job marketing it. And also making the whole crux of the game, aka controlling it, better. Because that was probably the worst thing that you could probably have in a game. Story is one thing and bad mechanics is another, but actually controlling the game, it's gotta feel good. You don't imagine if Mario had like floaty jumps. That would just not be good.
What, you mean Luigi?
Yes, Luigi.
Poor
Imagine
Luigi.
if Mario flew. Imagine if Mario dug faster.
Wait, isn't that what the cat suit does?
I don't know, but in Mario 2, I believe Toad was supposed to be like the fast digger.
And Princess was supposed to float?
No, she totally did fly. The only one that is unconfirmed in my knowledge is Toad. Like, no, he's a dick person, so whatever. Which makes sense, you imagine the dick could burrow pretty far into the sand. On that note, I don't think there's much else to say about Kid Icarus, but
No.
don't let this franchise go to waste, especially after taking the time 20 years after the Game Boy game to make a new one. Do not let it save. Do not do the Disney thing where it's like, and now here's Beauty and the Beast. It's coming out of the vault, and then it's gonna go back into the vault a year later, and then you guys are fucked. Go ahead and pirate it, because that's the only other way you can find it. We're totally okay with that, I guess. And see ya. So yeah, Nintendo, we're gonna pirate your games unless we're holding your games for ransom.
Don't do it, Nintendo. Come on.
Yeah.
You got a good thing going here. Just
try not to threaten them.
Just
so that we give a little
throw the ball around a little bit. I don't know what company I would like to see Kid Icarus be handled by if Nintendo's not going to do it themselves. I really do like the character design for this. Just like I love the way that Link is almost always presented.
Well, if they made it an RPG, they could give it to Square Enix. Yeah, especially because it definitely has the feel of Kingdom Hearts, so I think they could make a pretty decent title with that.
And this might segue into a Nintendo Square Enix version of Kingdom Hearts. A la, Mario fighting alongside King Mickey and Sora.
That's a conversation to best be talked about later on.
Right.
For a big idea that I have. But I guess maybe give it to some kind of side-scrolling shooter people? I don't really know who I'd like.
I know who they should give it to. For. The people that made Professor Layton. Yep, that's right. We want Kid Icarus to have a mystery.
Level 5. Who murdered Palutena?
Actually, level 5 would be perfect. Just think if Kid Icarus had to deal with a situation like Dark Cloud. Or he had to meet had to travel between the realms and, voyage on a ship. Kind of like, that pirate game that they did a while back. Space Pirates.
Well, I think he's supposed to be like the son of Icarus, hence the name. So he's supposed to be like a deliverer. So, I mean, that could work for him to go to a whole new land, which is what would work for my stereo, where you get out of the Greek mythology and, go to a new land and new characters and you're fighting some other thing. So, yeah. I mean, if they did make an RPG, I think Square Enix or Level 5 would be two good things. I don't think a Phoenix Wright type Layton game would be very good for Icarus, though.
It'd be interesting. Every classic anime ever. Scream your attacks!
Oh, and don't forget, he dyes his hair, and he loses his memory, and yeah, that's Kid Icarus. That's Pit for the new generation of 2015.
Boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, subscribe, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, ba-jack, boom, ba-jack, boom, boom, subscribe.